Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's Stan, Basse, and Ben Buckner with you on Thursday, the 11th of December, to talk a little bit about grain markets. Sorry, I've been traveling quite a bit, being in Saudi Arabia, and yesterday giving a keynote speech to the American Seed Trade Association down in Orlando. So all good on that. Of course, as people think about agriculture and think about the markets, there's a fair amount of concern about, the future. People talked about the opportunity for the United States to step up exports. And Ben, we are seeing some of that in corn and wheat here this morning, but we need to see more of it. The USDA interweekly export sales numbers that were due as of the 13th of November indicated that we sold, approximately 93.7 million bushels of corn, 31 million bushels of wheat, and 25.6 million bushels of beans. So on a crop year basis, we're now down about 471 million bushels on soybeans, but on corn, we're up 350 million or 367 million. On wheat, we're up 127. So remembering on USDA's export number for corn, they're projecting the crop year to be up 350 million. So we're following that fairly closely. As we look at the soybean number, however, though, our argument is that exports need to fall rather sharply, being down 471 this week and likely 500 million bushels next week is not a good way to start. So Ben, why don't you take us through it and lead us where we need to go? But the bean market is down about 85 cents from the highs. Corn is still trading in a broad range, and the wheat market's doing similarly.
Yeah. And I think that still a lot's going on politically, but the issues for us, long-term or even medium-term, just kind of comes down to arithmetic, and your breakdown of export sales is pretty good. And we'll get into it a little bit more. And we're also getting kind of updates on fund positions. And so what we're seeing is, this incredible buying and covering in soybeans and meal. And as of November 11th, the linked net fund 109 contracts. Only been higher than this in a few weeks over the last couple of decades. And those have all been supply rationing, like 2021, and of course the drought of 2012. And so is this in danger, I think is the big question. And it is important to go through the arithmetic of export sales and then, of course, Brazilian weather and Brazilian harvest products. It's a very, very large net fund position. And it probably peaked, I think, a few days after this period, 210, maybe 230,000 contracts. So it is kind of rivaling records. Mill length, about 30,000 contracts. And so you can kind of see the dramatic money flow that happened in the protein meal markets. And it's kind of interesting to think about, having covered 100,000 contracts of meal, and the market did go up, but that exciting. And so we've extracted that premium pretty quick. But I think that's the question moving forward is does this link to beans soy complex stay intact at South American harvest looming, staring at us in the face in just 4 or 5 weeks? The arithmetic around export sales too is very, very good in corn. We cannot dismiss, even today, I think the market especially, the USDA's forecast. What you hear is the clearest presentation of pace analysis. And so it is the usual suspects buying US corn, but they are buying it in bulk. So I think our message is that we've got a lot of competition. There's no shortage of feed grain. Argentine wheat is still priced below U.S. corn, which is rare. At some point, the market went up against world milling wheat prices, but in the U.S., probably not going to change their annual forecast. The soybeans, however, you can see we're outside of that yellow shaded areas. And so we actually saw in this reporting period, the week ending November 13th, China 1,000 tons of U.S. soybeans. I think that was known. Of course, we're adding maybe 6 million tons to this number, so baseline is done so far, but it still remains. I mean, here's I think the key message is that between now January 1st, the U.S. has had to have sold 420 million bushels. As far as we know, his bought maybe 235 million bushels. So I don't USDA in January can get out of trimming its soybean export forecast, and pacing this still, whether it's sales or shipments, about 1.4, maybe 5 billion bushels. So the adjustment to the downside get pretty large. I guess the message today is as we're catching up with export sales, it really hasn't gotten any. A lot of beans to China. They are on track, I think, to get to 12 million tons at some point in the next 3 months or so. But it's not enough. I mean, that changed our idea long term for the U.S. soybean. And also Brazilian weather. I guess just wanted to highlight not only pretty typical and normal, it looks very wet in really all of Brazil. So we have all of a sudden caught up with annual rainfall total in a state like Mato Grosso. So it's pretty timely. Probably going to get another 8 or 10 inches in January. So I think where you have seen some challenges in soybean productivity in northeastern going to be erased in the next 10 days. Everything is going to be, or you're kind of running out of time here. Mato Grosso is going to start harvesting soybeans earnest on January 10th or 15th. So that is 1 month away. We're kind of running out of time to threaten that crop. It looks like it's going to be, how big is big is kind of the question. But I also wanted to just kind of provide the context here. So everything that's being talked about and analyzed, whether it's purchases of soybeans, geopolitics, weather, trade flows, et cetera, all of that is built into world cash markets. And here is the snapshot today. We look at a market like wheat. One, really for the last 9 months has been incredibly flat. Argentine wheat is priced to sell. They're going to have to get rid of a lot of wheat from now until March 15th or so. That market's probably not going to go up. That acts as a weight on everywhere else. And the U.S. markets are the most expensive of the major exporters. So kind of hard to be bullish of U.S. wheat prices, whether it's futures or cash. Corn, U.S. corn is still competitive. And the trend has been a little bit firm. But I think this is all telling us that the market, cash markets feel export disappearance of corn in the U.S. and it's here yet. So, Gulf corn premiums in the U.S. have actually dropped a little bit this week. It's not that market's not telling us. I think that there's a disruption or dislocation in the U.S. market. We need that 3 billion bushels of demand relatively balanced. So I think that's what the corn cash market is. Then soybeans, you can see that the Brazilian FA premiums are kind of testing the lows of last April and May, which is pretty typical, moving lower, not moving higher. And I think there's still some weakness to come, which is pretty seasonal in nature. But as you get closer to Mato Grosso, northern Brazilian states, 50% of their crops on February 1st. So we kind of step back and think about the structure of markets. It's just going to be hard to build U.S. market share of wheat and soybeans. Corn, we're doing fine, but also maybe is it enough to engender some kind of lasting rally? The U.S. cash market's not telling us that there are any problems with supply and demand. So in the end, I think it's kind of just more of the same. We are watching Brazilian weather. Of course, the pace of China buying U.S. soybeans, but mathematics hasn't been enough yet. So balance sheets stay loose or get looser the next couple of months, and that's kind of our mantra.
Well, I think that's right, Ben. I've got China now taking about half of what they committed to from the U.S., from the United States. By that, I'm saying the Trump-Z agreement at 12 million tons. I'm very doubtful that the 25 million tons going forward in future years is really a deal yet. But that being said, we'll see how that all plays out. But, the soybean market and the soy meal market still has the biggest downside risk to me. Corn and wheat can hang up in here until we get some competition, but let's see how it all goes. But everybody have a great day. We appreciate being back, and we'll be hopefully at you tomorrow morning with some additional comments, and be well. We'll have a great Thursday in terms of trading.
Bye-bye.